This is Expedition Unknown. Wheels down, Savannah, Georgia. The steamship Pulaski launched from these very docks, and 183 years later, the city remains a jewel of Southern preservation. It's the kind of place that envelops you. It sweeps you along with music and humidity. A place of neatly landscaped squares and stately mansions, resting under the moss-covered arms of towering oaks. This is the hostess city, as she's long been known, a place that makes you realize that you never knew what hospitality meant.
We love Savannah!
Oh, and the food, I do declare. From its founding in 1733, life in Savannah has always revolved around the water, a history chronicled at the Ships of the Sea Maritime Museum. This mansion belonged to one of the owners of the Savannah, the first steamship to cross the Atlantic. Amidst the museum's galleries, I find New York Times best-selling author Patty Callahan, who recently wrote a novel about one of the South's most tragic and least known maritime accidents.
And Josh, this is the steamship Pulaski.
Wow. When I was thinking early steamship, I wasn't thinking about something like this. This thing looks like it was a behemoth.
This thing was over 200 feet long, which is more than twice the length of the ship that the colonists came over on.
So I've heard it referred to as the Titanic of the South. Is that a fair analogy?
It's fair for loads of reasons. One is there's not enough lifeboats.
It's just these 4 lifeboats?
These 4 lifeboats for 190 passengers.
Wow.
But
okay.
other than that, there was the innovation, the speed, the wealthy passengers, the hubris.
But while the sinking of the Titanic has been called a night to remember, the Pulaski has been largely forgotten, until now. This ship was designed to do what?
It was designed to go fast, and it was designed to be impressive.
Why is she so fast?
She has 2 side wheels, and they are 3 stories high. It was impressive.
So this is, for its day, really high tech.
Yes, but we are only 30 years into steamship technology. Think about the first 30 years of aviation technology.
A lot of accidents. Despite the risks, passage on the Pulaski was in high demand. The ship's route began in Savannah, where it would steam north to pick up more passengers in Charleston, before continuing to Baltimore, Maryland. All in just 2 days, less than half the time it took older steamers. Let's talk about who's on board the Pulaski. These must have been very wealthy citizens.
Very wealthy citizens, but they were also from all over. We had influential families of the South, including the owner of the ship,
Lamar.
Gazaway Bug Lamar.
Gazaway Bug Lamar, which I promise is a real name, was a wealthy merchant in Savannah who invested early in nascent steamship technology and commissioned the Pulaski in 1837. He's so proud of his new ship that he brings along his wife, 6 children, his sister, and his niece on the voyage. Gazaway Bug Lamar originally made his money, as many of the South's landed gentry did, in the cotton business. To be crystal clear, that meant he and many of the wealthy passengers on board were slave owners. Were there slaves aboard the Pulaski?
There were a few. If you think about it, this ship is headed to free lands.
Right.
So they don't bring their enslaved with them.
Okay.
Maybe some domestic help.
And are they counted in the ship's manifest?
They are. They aren't named with last names, and sometimes they aren't named at all.
The enslaved people on board, while listed as passengers, were denied actual names on the ship's manifest, so we don't know who they were. Other passengers we do know about include former New York Congressman William B. Rochester, whose father founded the city that bears his name. These wealthy passengers also brought something else aboard the Pulaski: money.
They would pack it with them for the summer.
Right.
If you think about it, there's no paper money. So the coins, there's gold, there's silver, and they pack them in these trunks because they're going to be gone for months.
Right. Today, these early mint U.S. coins are extremely rare and highly prized by collectors. A single coin can fetch tens of thousands of dollars, which means a fortune estimated at more than $20 million was lost when the Pulaski sank. She leaves Savannah when?
She leaves on June 13th, 1838 at 8 a.m. 90 passengers got on board in Savannah, and 60 more got on in Charleston.
Then, just after 11 p.m. in the darkness of the Atlantic, disaster strikes.
They're sailing towards Baltimore when the boiler on the starboard side goes dry. And the second engineer poured very cold water into a boiling copper boiler and created a bomb.
The Pulaski's boiler explodes with tremendous force, sending the 3-story high paddle wheels sailing off their axle and blowing a gaping hole in the midsection of the ship. Only 45 minutes later, the last traces of the vessel are swallowed up by the sea.
Going back to the Titanic, it sinks in the same way, meaning it collapses in the middle.
Right.
And the bow and the aft go upwards.
And so these 190 passengers, what becomes of them?
The captain was never seen again. First mate Hibbard helped people get on the life rafts. Of the 4 life rafts, only 2 were seaworthy.
Of course.
Only 2.
While a few are able to ride it out in lifeboats, other Pulaski survivors cling to pieces of the deck, hanging on for the next 5 days and nights until a schooner rescues them. And so of the 190 passengers, how many survive?
59.
That's it.
That's it.
The Pulaski was lost for nearly 2 centuries. That is until a few years ago when a pair of salvage experts claimed to find part of her remains off the coast of North Carolina. After thanking Patty for sharing the story of the Pulaski with me, I leave Savannah in the rear view and drive north to meet the men who may have found her. I motor 300 miles from Savannah to the historic port of Wilmington, North Carolina. At the junction of the Cape Fear River and Atlantic Ocean, Wilmington has been a center of maritime commerce since long before the American Revolution. I make my way to nearby Wrightsville Beach, where I charter a boat to take me offshore. I soon see why the Pulaski has been such an elusive wreck. We steam for nearly 3 hours away from the coast and out into open ocean. Finally, I spot salvage vessel the Blue Water Rose and a pair of her crew, Micah Eldred and Captain Mark Martin. Got it. Woo! All right. Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Josh.
Nice to meet you, Josh. I'm Mark.
Hey, Josh, Micah.
Micah.
Nice to meet you.
Micah's company, Blue Water Ventures, with its president and CEO Keith Webb, has already found treasure from ships like the Spanish galleon Santa Margarita and the steamship North Carolina. But right now, all of their attention is focused on finding the Pulaski.
Welcome to the Blue Water Rose. Let's head forward and get you settled.
All right, let's do it. Come on. You guys are out here.
We're out here.
You're out
Here
here.
in Atlanta.
How far offshore are we right now?
We're more than 40 miles offshore.
Where are we anchored?
We're on top of a part of the wreck of the Pulaski.
Locating the wreck originally wasn't easy, but today we're confident that we're on top of it.
And how do we know that?
Easiest way to tell you is to show you, so why don't you get suited up and get in the water and see what's underneath us.
No time like the present. Let's get wet. Come on. I suit up and dive in. The waters are choppy and the current is ripping. Fortunately, the crew has left a shot line I can follow down to the bottom, which rests at just over 100 feet.
Visibility is great. Must be about 80 feet.
As I drop down, my view is obscured by swarming schools of fish.
They're everywhere. This is crazy.
I make my way through the fishnado and approach the bottom.
Stand by, I see it.
On the barren ocean floor, shipwrecks become artificial reefs, an oasis for all kinds of sea life. Something big is down here.
Oh my God, there is something down here. Is that a boiler? Incredible. This looks like it might be part of the boilers of the Pulaski.
Sitting on the otherwise featureless sandy bottom lies a huge mass of twisted metal, part of mammoth steam boilers that once powered the SS Pulaski, the so-called Titanic of the South, before it exploded off the Carolina coast in 1838.
Unreal! You can still see the rivets in the boiler. Look at how the metal is bent here. You can tell this was a violent explosion.
At 11:05 p.m., cold water dumped into a hot boiler created a reaction so powerful that it literally blew the side wheels off the Pulaski and cracked the ship in half. This mangled wreckage is all that's left on this part of the sea floor.
Much of the ship was wood. Must have been blasted to bits. Who knows if anything else is left?
At this depth, I don't have the luxury of investigating for long.
Okay, I'm out of bottom time. I'm headed up.
Huge piece of machinery down there.
Yeah.
That looks like it could be a boiler. You can see all the riveting on it and stuff. It's old.
Yeah.
So, pretty good evidence. I mean, what else would be sitting out here that looks like it's from that era that's that size?
And we've got another piece of evidence that proves that this is the Pulaski.
Okay.
Found a candlestick, and on the inside of that candlestick was engraved SS Pulaski.
Get out of here. After drying off, Micah shows me what else they've found. Oh, you got the goods up here now. Look at this.
All of these things were actually found within about 100 feet of the boilers that you just dove on.
The first haul the team brought up included personal effects from some of the passengers and coins. Lots of coins. This is from Bogota. This is Colombian.
That's right.
This says Bolivia
Yes, minted in Bolivia.
and Great Britain mixed in.
Yeah.
So why coinage from all over?
At the time of this sinking, the United States didn't have enough of its own mintage to support the economy. Foreign currency was legal tender up until the mid-1850s. It was all done by weight. They didn't care if the gold was from Mexico or United Kingdom or Great
Colombia.
Britain or Colombia.
So this ship is kind of a coin collector's dream. In a
Well,
way.
that's what's really interesting for us is because the time period, some of these coins can be really rare. And so a perfect example is this little coin.
This is a U.S. coin?
It is, and it's a $5 face amount.
This is an 1836 $5 coin. This is, what, a quarter of an ounce?
Exactly, it's about a quarter of an ounce of gold.
So the value of the gold here is about 400, 500 bucks.
That's right.
Okay, but the value of the coin?
This particular coin would exceed $10,000 today.
This coin is worth $10,000? Well, now I see why you guys are out here all this way offshore. All right, so the $10,000 question is, where are these coins coming from and how do you find more of them? The answer lies at the stern of the Blue Water Rose, where Mark is keeping a wreck-hunting missile. I was not aware there were weapons on board.
Well, it's not a destructive weapon, it's a technological weapon.
Yeah,
it's,
sonar, yes?
It's side-scan sonar.
By dragging this torpedo called a towfish through the water, side-scan sonar will use sound waves to map the ocean floor and everything resting on it. We need this why? I mean, we're sitting right on top of the boilers.
We are, but you'll notice that there wasn't anything else around.
No, that's right. It was just white
So
sand.
It exploded. So we know that there's debris scattered in at least a 2 to 3 mile radius.
2 to 3 miles?
Yes, you got to remember it took 45 minutes for this thing to sink.
Right. In terms of these coins and the really valuable items on board the ship, is there a part of the ship you think they were in?
The aft section is probably where the majority of the gold and silver are.
Most of the coins would have been stowed in passenger cabins located in the rear half of the vessel. Here we go. Okay, towfish in the water.
All right, let's go see what she sees.
After you, come on. Here we go, fingers crossed.
We've got data.
All right, she's running. So let's talk about what we are looking for other than a giant steamship. I mean, what would jump out at you on here?
Anything that has a pretty decent size, 4 or 5 meters or bigger.
Yeah.
Complete circles and right angles rarely happen in nature.
Yeah.
So that's something to look at. If it's sitting high up, you're gonna see a shadow off to one side or the other.
All right, well, let's do some watching. The Blue Water Rose runs along a straight path for more than 1.5 miles before changing course.
Making a turn.
Roger. Let me know when we start the next line.
Copy.
All right, coming around.
Look, there's something.
Yeah, there's something right
That
there.
thing's probably about 4 or 5 meters, but it's not big enough and there's nothing around it.
Right, there's
for
no
me to-
debris field. There's just something sitting
it's
there.
just something, and that could have fallen off a boat.
Right, that could be anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is how it goes. Search in a straight line,
Making a turn, starboard.
turn, and repeat.
Oh, there you go. There
Look
you
at that,
go.
look
Boom.
at that.
All right, we marked
What?
that as a target.
There was a bunch of stuff there.
Yeah.
And it looked kind of like something coming out and then something
Looked
turned
like
off to the side.
Right, looked like 2 pieces.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's worth looking at.
All right, well, we got a target.
Okay.
We mark the sonar hit and continue mowing the lawn.
Oh, there's some debris there. Oh, big pieces.
Something.
Something big is coming in. That's got to be 5 or 6 meters. Outrageous. Oh, look at this. More coming
And
in.
it keeps going. Look at this.
Yeah, huge. That thing's at least 20 meters long.
I mean, there's something sitting down there that's 60 feet long. you
Yeah, and you've got a defined trail coming
think? All
off
of this
of it.
looks
Look
like
at this.
debris. Look at that.
Yeah, that stuff is obviously man-made.
We got to look at that.
That's absolutely something that we're going to look at quickly.
So we got 2 killer targets right
Yeah.
now. Should we dive the first one?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get wet. Come on.